U-GeekTV.
Welcome back to U-GeekTV. Welcome back to the Unapologetic Opinion. And as you can see, I'm flying solo today, but we got plenty to get into. First, we'll be discussing the Snow White review. Then I'll be getting into Novocaine. Finally got a chance to check that movie out. I'm reviewing that, as well as The Woman in the Yard. I have a lot to say about this film, and honestly, we're going to get into an ending explained situation because I want to go over what I think the ending meant. We also got some new Spider-Man news for both Tom Holland's Spider-Man and the next Spider-Verse film, which I'm very excited for. And lastly, we'll talk about that Avengers Doomsday casting and what that could possibly mean. All of that and more right here on the Unapologetic Opinion. And without further ado, let's get into it. But first, do not forget, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Leave comments where you see feet. I'd love to hear from you. I appreciate it. All right, let's get into it for real. So I finally got a chance to check out Snow White, the latest in the Disney live action remakes. And I don't plan on spending a whole lot of time just really talking through this, but it's a movie that happened. Is it as terrible as I anticipated it would be? No. Actually, it's a lot better than I was going to give it credit for. I was looking forward to really reviewing this film and absolutely hating it and just coming on and having an absolute roast session, similar to the one I had when it came to the Good Times reboot on Netflix. But that's not what I got. That's not what we're going to get into. It's actually a competently made film. Not that it's the best, but like it's just okay, really. That's the main thing that I take away from this film. Rachel Zegler, honestly, you can say whatever you want about her politics, about the way she carries on like a walking algorithm at times. And I'm not one to get into politics, so all the speech about the woke shit and all that kind of stuff she has going on, I'm not even going to get into that. I just think she's a kid who really forsook the, is that a word, forsook, anyway, decided to forsake the business side of promoting a movie in favor of what she believes in and her politics, which traditionally that's a great thing, but in her case it wasn't so great, and some of the things she said, she could have had a little bit more take with it. But again, neither here nor there. The film itself and her performance in it, she's great. Like, she's a great Snow White. She's honestly the best part of this film. Um, Besides the dwarves, which that surprised me also. But she's a great singer. Like, she holds her own in that realm. I'm unfamiliar with her work up until this point. As to my understanding, she was in West Side Story, and that was kind of her breakout. So maybe I'll check that out. But in this film, she does a great job just encompassing who Snow White is, like the quote unquote fairest of them all, which that's a point I'm about to get into in just a moment. But yeah, she has some memorable tunes and memorable notes that she hits here. And like, her story, she carries her side of the story. Prince Charming isn't actually a prince, which I believe that that's a bit of like a girl empowerment or woman empowerment move right there, to kind of just take some power away from the men in this story, which that's whatever. Gal Gadot, or Godot, however you choose to say it. I think respectfully it's Gadot though. I'll tell you this. The look of the evil queen, she got that all day. In spades. Gal Gadot looks excellent in this film, per the usual. The costume design for her is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Like, she was walking around, and not to be disrespectful, but when we're talking about like bad bitch energy, she had bad bitch energy in spades. Like, she had the look, the persona, all of it. She had that swagger, all that kind of stuff. The acting is Gal Gadot. You don't cast her for her acting chops or lack thereof. It's the look that you're going for. She delivers on the look. Um, Her singing, they did the same thing they did with Chiwetel Ejiofor in the Lion King remake, where they kind of had him talk through the song instead of sing it. She does that here, and she has a big musical number, which that was a brave thing to do. And there is a little bit of auto tune that you can hear. Now that I'm thinking about it in retrospect, that you can hear when she's singing. But overall, she did okay. Like I said, she had the energy that you would think she would bring. The funniest part about all of this is she's supposed to be, in terms of looks, intimidated by Snow White, who's essentially like this little girl or whatever. And I'm like, I, no, and that's not to disparage Rachel Zegler's looks or anything like that. Um, it's just one of those things. Like, are you serious? But anyways, not even going to get into all of that. Um, the dwarves, even after the debacle of Peter Dinklage essentially sticking his nose somewhere where it didn't actually belong and actually costing people some jobs, went against the human casting of the dwarves, and we got these CGI machinations instead. They're actually kind of charming and endearing and funny in a lot of ways. Um, they were the best part of this film outside of Rachel Zegler's performance as Snow White. I enjoyed seeing them on screen, which is another thing that surprised me. But overall, the film starts off strong. I'll say that. But after a while, it does overstay its welcome. The new elements that they added from the Snow White lore or whatever, they don't quite they don't quite land. And in the end, we see where they clearly wanted to make like this political statement about who's the fairest of them all. And they have um the evil queen and Snow White engage in like a town hall debate, politics style. And the evil queen is clearly supposed to be Trump. So there's that. I really don't go to movies to see that, especially like a fairy tale movie or anything like that. So it was one of those movies or moments rather that kind of had my eyes, rolling. Um, and there are other movies where I'm fine with that in, you know, Civil War, for example. But it's like a time and place thing. And then again, you overstayed your welcome in order to get this part of the story out. Overall, I guess that gets me to my verdict in that case. Overall, it's a movie that happened, honestly. I'm not moved either way by it. Like, I think being indifferent is one of the worst things you can feel about a form of media. And I feel like that about Snow White. Like some of the songs stuck the landing. Like would I listen to some of this stuff again? Maybe so. But overall, I wasn't all that impressed with it. But it is better than I expected it to be. So for me, it's an unapologetically I film. It's just a 3 out of 5. Far better than what I expected, but not all that great. And yeah, that's it. So that's my review for Snow White. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Continue to like, share, subscribe. And with that being said, we'll move on to the next. All right, next up, we have Novocaine, which I saw this film after I saw Snow White, and it fared much better with me. Novocaine stars Jack Quaid, who I recently found out was Dennis Quaid's kid, as a Nepo baby who really holds his own. Novocaine, the character, is not a Nepo baby. Jack Quaid is, but you see what I'm saying. He carries this movie very well. It's about a guy who doesn't feel pain, and he essentially becomes a superhero in this film. But like the old school 80s action hero superhero, like your Rambo or John McClane. He has a lot in common with John McClane, especially considering that his story takes place around Christmas and his loved one is kidnapped, or in John McClane's situation, held hostage. But anyways, um, Novocaine goes on this quest to get who he feels is the love of his life. He's a man who has been through a lot of loneliness, a lot of people can't really relate to him or understand him because of his affliction of not being able to feel pain. And he carries it very well. I didn't expect this much heart out of this movie. I just thought it was going to be a shoot 'em up, bang bang, fight situation, like a typical Jason Statham movie. But no, you get a lot more depth than I was expecting here. Uh, Jack Quaid is not who I immediately think of when it comes to action, but the action looks really good here, like when he's doing his thing. And it's funny because Novocaine is not like this brawler or ass kicker. However, um his ability to not feel pain comes in handy, and it really puts into perspective how hard it would be to fight somebody who can't feel pain and is not afraid to really get into a real brawl, because I mean they can just keep going until you kill them. And that's another thing that's played up well here. The fact that he's not immortal is brought up constantly and is used to great effect here. There's one fight in particular that takes place in like a tattoo parlor. Not gonna spoil it here, but it's a guy, this gigantic dude that he's fighting. And when I tell you they get to it, they really get to it. I enjoyed this film thoroughly. I recommend it to anybody. I can't wait to see it again. They have a really good twist here that you see early on, and the ramifications of it uh, play play very well throughout the rest of the movie. And again, Novocaine is a character that you really like, that you really feel for. And I can't wait to watch this movie again. So, with that being said, I'm going to render my verdict here. Novocaine is an unapologetically legit film. It is a 4 out of 5. If you haven't seen it, absolutely go see it. I can't wait for it to come on streaming. Just a great time. So, with that being said, before we move on, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you've seen the movie, if you're going to see the movie, whatever the case may be, I love to hear from you. And with that being said, we'll move on. So, went and checked out Woman in the Yard. And this was a film that was very much anticipated by myself and my wife and a lot of other people that I've been seeing, on the internet just talking about this film. This movie had no more than one trailer, at least from what I saw, and it didn't give away anything. I did not know what this movie was about outside the fact that this woman comes and sits in another woman's yard, and she's just saying today's the day. And there was a lot of creepy shit on the trailer, and it was one of those films where I was like, yo, I got to check this shit out. Like, I know this is going to be an absolute banger. So was it? No, I was wrong in many ways, and I'm sure a lot of people were disappointed as well. Just based on what I've been seeing on the internet, a lot of people were disappointed. Before we really get into this, let me, of course, remind you again: like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of Woman in the Yard if you've seen it. I keep leaving the off. That's my bad. The Woman in the Yard. Let me know what you thought of it if you've seen it. And yeah, let's dig into this one because I feel like I'm going to spend a little bit of time just really talking through this. So Danielle Detweiler stars in The Woman in the Yard as Ramona. And this is a woman who is suffering an injury from a car accident that she suffered while being in the car with her husband. And he died. She, well, clearly lived. Or is it clear? Anyway, she lived. And her two kids, they weren't with them at the time or anything like that. But she's raising a teenage son and a young daughter. Um, and they're at this home that apparently she and her husband bought, but it's kind of insinuated that maybe it wasn't a mutual decision that they came to later on in the film. I'm telling you this, and yes, it is a spoiler. It has nothing to do with The Woman in the Yard. Like, Nothing to do with her at all. This mysterious woman shows up, um, talking very mysteriously and vaguely about something, saying that she was summoned, and a lot of uh terrorizing hijinks ensue, maybe. I don't know if that's the proper terminology here or anything, but you go through a lot of jump scare attempts and a lot of exposition and all that kind of stuff before ultimately you get to the big conflict between Ramona and the woman in the yard. And that's what the next segment of this episode is going to be. The video that's going to follow this is going to be an unapologetically explained segment slash video in which I get into like what happened at the end of this movie and really some of the parts that's throughout it. So in that regard, it's more of a spoiler review type deal like I've traditionally done. But for the sake of this review, which is spoiler free, I'll say these things about it. The film is well made. Like it has a good look and feel to it. Danielle Detweiler is money when it comes to just being a good actress and conveying emotions and really carrying the weight of complex characters. Like she's really, really good at that. The scares don't land all that well. There are a couple that stand out. There's one in the attic in particular that I enjoyed, but it's not really like, you know, it's more psychologically scary. And even in that regard, I've seen other films do that part better. But overall, it wasn't all that scary. Now, I will say this: the character, the woman in the yard herself, is absolutely unsettling. I want to try and pronounce her name, but I'm afraid that I'm going to absolutely butcher it. But she is striking as this character. I loved her performance in the film. Ultimately, the fifth point that I have here is the ending falls really flat. They get cute at the end, which, when it comes to a horror film, you really don't want to get cute, especially when you've had at least a decent build. And then we have a resolution that doesn't land and really doesn't feel like a resolution. And that's what I'm going to get to in another discussion in another video. But for the sake of this review right now, I'm ready to render my verdict. The woman in the yard, for me, is an unapologetically disappointing film. This used to be the basic as fuck rating, but now I'm just calling it unapologetically disappointing, which is what it was. It is a 2 out of 5 for me. Here's the funny part. I'm going to watch this film again because I have some theories about what happens at the end. And I want to see if how the film plays out gives me a hint and really lets me know um, if any of my theories are correct or maybe on track, which again, I'm about to get into in the following segment here. Um, but yeah, that's it for me. It's a 2 out of 5, unapologetically disappointing. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. With that being said, I'm not sure if I would like spend money to go and see this. Like whenever it's on streaming, at that point I would say, yeah, check it out. But no, nah, man, it was disappointing, highly disappointing, and that's a shame. So with that down, I'm ready to get into explaining kind of how this film unfolds. And the film I'm referring to again is The Woman in the Yard. Um, and really want to dig into how it plays out. And kind of just let some of the theories and feelings I had about the film really out on the table. And I need to be able to get into some spoilers in order to do that. Okay. For starters, the woman. Oh, by the way, this is absolutely a spoiler discussion. Like everything I say from here on out is spoiler riddled. If you're not with it, of course, the timestamps are going to be in the video. I'm going to let you know, I am spoiling this film. But giving you the opportunity to just, come back, later in the video or whatever the case may be, and then check it out from there. But before we get into it, like, share, subscribe, comment, let me know how you feel. I definitely need those likes for the algorithm. I appreciate you. And yeah, let's get into this. The woman in the yard um is the embodiment of suicide. Ramona is very depressed, and she's been contemplating uh unaliving herself, and I'm saying this for YouTube, unaliving herself for what it appears to be some time. And she finally has the courage, I guess, or the courage within herself to do it while she's driving in the truck with her husband. And that's when the woman in the yard first appears inside the truck with them. And it looks like it may have been intentional that she wanted to unalive herself, and she had the accident, but her husband uh, died instead. So, moving on from there, there is a sense of guilt here. And that's what I initially thought the woman in the yard represented. But no, again, it's her wanting to unalive herself. And the representation of the woman in the yard, like as the film goes on, she gets closer and closer to the house. And as she gets closer and closer to the house, you see that Ramona knows what's up. She kind of knows why Ramona is there. And I'm not Ramona, why the woman in the yard is there. And she won't share with her children what it is that's going on. Um, and then different aspects start to disappear. The chickens die that they have in the house first. The dog is presumably dead. Like, they don't show it or anything like that, which I appreciate. But he just disappears. And again, it's like things are slowly being pulled away as the woman in the yard is approaching. Eventually, she makes it into the house. There's this like big conflict that takes place in the attic, and it's very mysterious how it plays out. It looks like the woman in the yard is grabbing her smallest child, and then you see Ramona holding the child at the end. It's a lot of psychological stuff that happens throughout, and ultimately, you find out that Ramona and the woman in the yard are one and the same. They do like something really trippy where the Ramona is the woman in the yard and she's talking to herself from the beginning of the movie when they first met. That part kind of plays out okay, but it's still very cute. It's very vague how it tries to play out, and it's left up to interpretation. And it kind of feels like the director and the writer didn't really have an ending planned out for this film. In the end, Ramona does elect to unalive herself, and the film ends with her and her family, as well as the dog, reuniting at a finished version of this fixer upper that they have. And now I just want to get into my theories and my feelings on this. So, again, uh, it's not explicitly said who is actually alive. Like, it's shown to you for sure that Ramona is gone. But the first theory that I have here, just based on everything that I see, is that Ramona not only unalived herself, but she also unalived both of her children as well as the dog and the chickens. There's a point in the film where we see that the son, I believe he was asleep, and when he wakes up, he turns and he sees Ramona pulling a knife out of his sister's back. And then Ramona wakes up from a nap or whatever. And, then the woman in the yard continues to terrorize him. We also see in the attic, there's a moment where Ramona looks like she's trapped as a shadow. And the woman in the yard is approaching the daughter, and the daughter kind of allows her to calm, and they hug each other, and it appears that the woman in the yard kills the daughter. Then the daughter is shown alive again later in the film. And the ending has Ramona send her children away to the neighbors so they can call 911, and Ramona goes into the shed, and that's where she uses a rifle to unalive herself. And at the end of the film, the kids return, the dog is alive, and again they go into that finished house. So this suggests to me that over the course of the film, Ramona was um unaliving members of her family. And when she finally decided to do it herself, the end of the film is the afterlife. Like they're all reunited, and you get a somewhat happy feeling, and she's finally at peace with her mental health on the other side. So that's one theory. My second theory is that the film, all the events take place within Ramona's mind. That Ramona has already, well, I'm not even going to say she's already unalived herself or anything like that. For all I know, she can be in a asylum or something of that nature. But her mind is unraveling because of her innermost thoughts, and like she's still dealing with the grief of the husband. Um, and she's slowly like slipping away into a compromised mental state. And the reason why I say that this could all be taking place in her head is there is a moment where the woman in the yard and Ramona are talking about, making the decision to commit suicide. And Ramona asked the woman in the yard, "What about my children?" And the woman in the yard shows their lives as how their lives play out where Ramona is gone, and you see them as adults. The little girl, she graduates. I believe the boy. There's picture of him as an adult, looks like a veterinarian, and their lives play out okay. I feel like that maybe she's aware of all of that uh, in her mind. However, she's just stuck within her own psyche, and none of the events of the movie played out. I believe the home is where she may have had a psychotic break, and she was just taken to an asylum or a mental health hospital or whatever the case may be. In her mind, this is where the battle to want to commit suicide is taking place. Now, is that the most far-fetched theory of the ones I have? Maybe so, but that's kind of ultimately where I landed at with my second theory. My third and final theory is kind of a mixture of both. It's that Ramona does go through with committing suicide, that her children were actually there, and the dog and everything. That she did still kill the chickens and the dog, but everything that you saw anytime the children were in peril, that was completely in her mind, and that was her battling, protecting them while also succumbing to her suicidal thoughts. And so ultimately, the part where she sends her kids away to go get help, that does happen. And then she unalives herself. And the part afterwards where she is rejoined by her children and her dog, that's her in the afterlife. And we roll the credits from there. And so somewhere out there, those kids came back, and their mother had actually unalived herself or whatever. What's interesting is in that ending, the husband is not there at all. It's insinuated that she no longer wanted to be married to him, um, and that his death may have been the freedom that she needed to carry out unaliving herself. And I thought that was very interesting, and it just went unexplored ultimately. But the vagueness of the ending of this film lends itself to why it's disappointing, because even when you're being purposely vague, there's a artsy, not an artsy, but a more artistic way of doing that while also not leaving your audience hanging, which I feel like they did. But of these theories, are there any that you agree with? Do you have your own theories? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you, and I appreciate everything. Thank you. With that being said, let's move on to the next. So, CinemaCon is going on, and there have been some pretty big announcements. Something I'm excited about, and I didn't give it its own segment, but I'll just say it here. John Wick, the John Wick universe is expanding. Kane, who I always felt was going to get a spinoff, that's moving forward. The Blind Swordsman, played by Donnie Yen, and he's going to direct it. So that's going to be really exciting. A badass action movie, absolutely. And then there is an anime where John Wick, about the story where he took out all of his enemies in one night, which I believe is his first deal with the high table to retire, which I think that's going to be really cool. And then we have John Wick Chapter 5, and basically everybody is coming back for that. So that's going to be awesome. So that was a really interesting thing that was announced. But in terms of scale of massiveness, Spider-Man Brand New Day kind of usurps everything right now. This is the fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man film. It sounds like it's well, we don't have a lot of details, but I'm pretty excited about it because as cool as Tom Holland Spider-Man has been, we don't get struggle Spider-Man with him. Like, he's not necessarily that broke Spider-Man. He's like this kid with a high-tech suit and all this technology and stuff like that. And he's had some pretty grand adventures for someone, so young in their Spider-Man career. And what I liked about in spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, I liked that got us back to our typical status quo Spider-Man. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that Spider-Man develops over the course of this next film and going forward, because I think Tom Holland is going to be Spider-Man for a long time. With that being said, the title is interesting. If I'm not mistaken, that was the title of like a Spider-Man comic book reboot where they did the same thing, took him back to his status quo. I'm not sure if he was in high school, but I know like people couldn't really remember him or something like that. And he was just regular old Spider-Man again. So this is going to be interesting because where we left off with No Way Home is nobody could remember him. Like his friends, the other Avengers, everything, the spell that Doctor Strange carried out, nobody was going to remember him anymore. The other interesting thing about this is this film is set to come out after Avengers Doomsday. It's coming out July 2026. And Avengers Doomsday comes out, if I'm not mistaken, May 1st of 2026. So by proxy, this film is probably going to do $1 billion because it's going to be the first film after whatever crazy ass ending Avengers Doomsday has planned for us. So that's going to be, the positioning of this film is very, very interesting to me. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I like the Tom Holland series so far. I think they're very well done stories. Even the one I don't care for, which was Far From Home, it was still okay. But yeah, Brand New Day coming out next year. Let me know what you think about the announcement so far. Again, there's not a whole lot of information that we have outside of, I believe Tom Holland said that this is going to be a brand new Spider-Man story, something unlike you haven't really seen before. So that sounds exciting. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, obviously. But let me know what you think of the announcement in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and let's move on to the next announcement. So, keeping up with CinemaCon updates and Spider-Man updates, we finally got an update on Beyond the Spider-Verse. Now, originally, Beyond the Spider-Verse was supposed to come out this year or last year or something like that. But we had the writer's strike, and then there was some inner turmoil amongst the animation staff and the studio itself. And so it went kind of radio silent for a while, but now we have updates. Beyond the Spider-Verse is coming out in June of 2027. I believe it was June 4th, 2027, which is a long way away, which makes me feel like, God damn, what the fuck was y'all talking about when y'all said this shit was coming out like the following year after Across the Spider-Verse? But I'll take it, whatever. I just got to make it there. Lord says the same, right? Um, with that being said, there was a few details that came out. Apparently, there are going to be some new animation styles that we hear or we see within this film. I'm very interested to see what that means and excited to see what they have in store for us. But we got some new screens and some new stills from the film. And yeah, there may be some spoilers for Across the Spider-Verse, but that film was huge. This one's going to be bigger. You should have seen it at this point if you're here. Let's take a look at some screens. So first screen up, we have Miles. We don't know where the fuck he is based on this background, anything like that. You can see where his suit is torn on the upper left-hand side. So there appears to be some kind of battle that is taking place here. I feel like he may have fought the other universe's Prowler, who is also him or a version of him, which that was such a great ending. Let me take a moment to talk about how great Across the Spider-Verse was and how absolutely beside myself I was when the credits rolled without an ending to that film. I was so invested, and I'm still invested in what this story is. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out because that was such a great ending to that film. But I was beside myself. That ending to Across the Spider-Verse haunts me all the time, and I love looking at it. It's so well done. But anyways, Miles is back. Look like he may have gotten his ass kicked or kicked some ass. We'll see. Next screen up, it looks like it could be a chase. This does look similar to the aesthetics that the universe he's stuck in had going on. So this could be a battle of some sorts. But again, I'm getting excited, man, just looking at this. This is an interesting screen here. I'm not sure what universe they're in, but this is Gwen and Miles. They're having pretty intense conversation, and this is just striking. It's a striking look. The art and the way everything looks, like this looks kind of like some kind of clip art or something like that. It reminds me of Spider Punk's look, like how he looks like he was a cutout of some other pictures, and the way he was animated was so different. And maybe it's his universe that they're in because it kind of looks similar to that, even though Gwen and Miles still look the same as they look in their universes. So I'm really interested to see what this conversation is, how it plays out, and if their friendship can recover after the events of Across the Spider-Verse. All right, let's move on. I love this. I love just this picture. This picture can be a poster. It's the Prowler or Miles's Prowler, or the Miles version of the Prowler, which looks absolutely cool, fighting against Miles. And the details that came out is first they're going to fight, which we could have assumed this. First they're going to fight, and then they're going to team up. I'm interested to see how this all plays out. I definitely want to see how their fighting styles play against each other here. I'm looking forward to this movie, man. But this is an absolutely badass picture of anti-Miles or whatever. But yeah, man, it looks exciting, man. Like really, I'm hyped up for this. It also looks like they're not in the other Miles universe or the Miles that we know and love so far. It looks like they may be in some kind of other universe having this battle. So that's cool. But yeah, that's everything that we got from CinemaCon in terms of Beyond the Spider-Verse. I'm very excited yet again about this. Let me know what you think about it, about the screen so far, the announcement, and the length of time that we have to wait in order to see this film. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate you. Let's move on to the next. All right, so we're gonna get up out of here on this. Marvel Studios, Disney, all that shit. They did a online casting reveal for Avengers Doomsday, and it was very interesting. There were a lot of people that you could assume was going to be in there. Like I assumed that Loki and Tom Hiddleston, um, Chris Hemsworth, aka Thor, Anthony Mackie. I figured all of them were going to be back, and of course, it ends with the reveal of Robert Downey Jr., who we know is playing Doctor Doom. All of those names were not that big of a deal to me. I mean, it's great that they're coming, but I expected them to be there. I expected the Fantastic Four to be there. They were all announced. Pedro Pascal, um, I can't remember the other Joseph Quinn. They were announced to be there, so we knew that. Simu Liu was announced coming back as Shang-Chi, presumably. Just about all of the Thunderbolts are in the movie, which that kind of spoils that film a little bit, I guess, because there's a name that was left off and some fans in the uproar. And the trailers kind of already told you what was going to happen to their character anyway. Um, let's see Sebastian Stan. Well, yeah, he's one of the Thunderbolts, so of course he's in there too. And it was pretty standard fare. It was exciting at first, but then they kind of left off with a whimper when they announced Robert Downey Jr., who we already knew, or the camera panned to him. But there's a middle portion of this that really got me hyped, and I would, talk about it a little bit. Rebecca Romijn is coming back as Mystique. Patrick Stewart is coming back as Charles Xavier. Ian McKellen is coming back as Magneto. OG Magneto is in this film. I love both Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. But Ian McKellen's Magneto was just so regal and cool to me, whereas Michael Fassbender's Magneto was just this badass who's really homicidal. And both versions are awesome to me. So I'm looking forward to seeing those two again, Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. Um, Channing Tatum is coming back as Gambit. That's going to be great. I mean, he got a lot of love, rightfully so, for Deadpool and Wolverine. So it's great to see that that character is going to be back. And the actor who played Nightcrawler, I believe, is Alan Cumming. Make sure. Just a moment. Yes, Alan Cumming. He's reprising his role as Nightcrawler, so I'm excited about that. Tenoch Huerta was announced to be coming back as Namor, which I didn't expect him to be in the film, honestly. Letitia Wright is announced as coming back to be Black Panther or whatever. So yeah, you all know I've made many videos at this point explaining how I feel about the lack of T'Challa and all that kind of stuff. Kelsey Grammer is coming back as Beast. So we got a good bit of X-Men that are coming back from this. Judging off the way the announcements ended, James Marsden is also coming back as Cyclops. Judging off the way the announcements ended, and it's rumors out there that there are more names to be made, and there were a lot of heavy hitters that were missing, like Jeremy Renner, who we know is gonna come back as Hawkeye at this point. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are not gonna be in Avengers Doomsday. Ain't no fucking way. It's just no fucking way that those characters or actors and characters aren't gonna be in there. Then Halle Berry was missing, which like she's fucking Storm. She's gonna come back. Um, there are a lot more names that you would expect to see there that didn't make the announcement. So it makes me feel like there is going to be a follow-up announcement to it. It also feels like we're going to get a little bit of Avengers versus X-Men going on here. Like it feels like that's the foundation that we have going on. It gave me some excitement, honestly. Seeing those names, and I feel like there are a lot of names that are going to be kept under wraps even after the next set of announcements are out there. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens with Avengers Doomsday, because I mean, outside of it being a fucking Avengers movie, like, it's gonna be a who's who situation. Like, I can't wait to see who's all in there. What are your theories on who else could be announced? What did you think about the announcements so far? Some of them were underwhelming, but they had a good bit of stuff to really sink your teeth into that I'm excited for. Let me know in the comments, like, share, subscribe. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I appreciate it. So that's our show. This is the first show that I've done solo in any medium, on any podcast. Uh, that's this length, and sometimes like in this style. Of course, we got the unapologetic watch and the unapologetic reaction. I do those solo, but those videos are kind of shorter. It was really interesting to do this by myself, man. I used to do podcasts by myself on the Unapologetic Experience, which you can actually find on Apple Podcasts and other podcast sources. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I want to know what you thought of the show today. Let me know in the comments, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And with that being said, I'm getting up out of here. I am Jarius, the Unapologetic Geek. This is the Unapologetic Opinion right here on U-GeekTV. I appreciate you. It's all love. Thank you very much for viewing. And with that being said, I am out.
U-GeekTV.